Everybody, welcome back to Autism Awakening. Again, I want to talk a little bit about my personal work with him, with GS, is that he, his work is as a coach to help men with relationships. But at the core of that work is the ability to handle stress. And so what he's going to be getting into, and I think is applicable for all of us, whether it's husbands, whether it's wives, whether it's grandparents, whoever, it doesn't matter. He teaches ways for you to handle stress. And honestly, that's the core of his work. Again, his specific work is relationships and helping men in relationships, but it's more than that. It's about helping you handle your stress. So men, women, boys, girls, really doesn't matter. It's this work that helps ground your nervous system. And he started talking about meditation. There we go. We got GS back in here. And let me invite him back in. There we go. So I know it's going to be great techniques for you guys to try, and I really want to encourage you guys to try to do this stuff. Hey, GS, Facebook had a brain fart.
That it did.
I was trying to catch everybody up on how important your work is. Just to ground all of us, men, women, boys, girls. It's all about grounding our nervous system. So I'll continue.
Yeah, exactly. So embodiment is about turning your attention towards a physical sensation in the body rather than just trying to do, like, almost go into a negative, which is I'm going to not think about these thoughts that are arising in me. And what I find is basically it's more compelling. It's easier to have the practice stick. It clears the mind more easily when we focus on a lot more on sensation. Now, last thing I'll say about meditation is it doesn't mean that meditation schools of thought don't talk about sensation. I'm just saying, as traditionally taught to mortals like you and me, it is not taught with a lot of focus on the sensation. And so in embodiment, we're solely focused on that. And what we're trying to do is get the thinking mind out of the picture so that we can be more in the moment with what's actually happening. And our child acts up, our spectrum child acts up, and the subconscious goes into all this blame and frustration, and he's just being stubborn. And even though it's below the surface, we act as if that's true, but those are just thoughts and labels that our subconscious generates to try to make sense of the situation. What's actually happening is you have a child who is now locked up at a very deep level, and there's no danger here. The intensity of the situation isn't warranted with what's actually happening. And well, I'll leave that at that. So let me get into practice. So what we want to do is we want to locate a sensation in our body, and we want to turn our awareness towards that. And so I teach a principle called directed attention, which you and I have gone through in multiple forums, where you're directing your awareness to somewhere in the body. So let's do a calisthenic here. I'm going to ask everybody who's on the call to stand up, and this is just a calisthenic to demonstrate what we're trying to do here. But so you're standing up, put a little bend in your knees so your quads activate, and then bring your hips slightly back so there's a little bit of a fold at your hip. And now you can really feel the ground, and just bring your awareness down to your right foot. Again, I'm just demoing something. This is not an actual exercise. And so you can, without actually leaning on the right foot or anything like that, you can actually just bring all your awareness that is now focused on the right foot. And now actually just switch it to the left foot. And so it's not about where the eyes are going. There's just an inner awareness that you can actually direct. So that's what we're going to try to do here. We're going to direct the awareness to different sensations in the body. And so one of the ones that I teach to all of my students, and one that I do at the beginning of every one of my morning practice sessions, is, so I'm standing, my knees are slightly bent, my hips are slightly back. I balance my weight on the ball of my foot and the heel. And now I'm just going to close my eyes. So everybody close your eyes with me and drop your awareness down to your feet. And the sensation of weight that gravity generates in you, the gravity's pulling you down into the floor. And The floor, feel the floor, how it pushes back up to support you. And just feel that. You don't have, there's no mental epiphany that's going to happen here. Just feel that sensation. And then you can actually kind of rock back and like forward and back slightly, just real subtly. Like you bring your hips forward and the weight goes under the ball of your foot, and you bring your hips back slightly and it shifts to the heel. And you can kind of just have a little teensy sway to kind of to generate a little bit more sensation with the way that it's shifting. And just feel that. And that's all you have to do right now. There's no epiphany just yet here. And you're just feeling. Now what I want you to do is open your eyes and look at the screen if you can, and be with me. So we're in what I call a relational space. Like I'm talking to you, you're listening to me, you're nodding and affirming, and so we're in a relational space together, which is what life is about. We're externalized with other people. We don't just sit on the top of the mountain and say Om. We're with people. But what I want you to do is I want you to, while you're experiencing me, I want you to keep feeling that sensation of weight down there. So and I'm just rocking back and forth. You can see the movement of the camera with that wall behind me. I'm just rocking back and forth, and I'm looking, actually, Jared, I'm looking at you. And so what's happening right now, just keep doing that and listening to me while you're still feeling your weight. Make sure your knees are bent. What's happening is with you've got some percentage of your attention on this weight. And what it's doing is number one, it's reminding you have a physical body. What that's going to allow you to do is actually have better access to your emotions while you're while you're in this relational space with another human being. The second effect is it's going to crowd out some of that chatter that inner voice of chatter that's making up stories and labels and explanations. It's the analytical mind wants to argue the facts with somebody who maybe is giving you an emotional expression. So you're going to want to argue the facts with your child who's clearly not in a factual place. And so when you take some of that awareness and put it on this sensation in your feet, there's only so much space in your awareness. And so what it does is just it takes away the space that normally the thinking mind would be operating in. And what is the net effect? Instead of being in the thinking mind and the thoughts, which are always about future and past. So thoughts are always projections into the future or rumination on the past. It's never now. The net effect of this is that you come into the now, because without the thoughts, you're just here. And you're here with the sensation that only happens in the now. Like when you feel a sensation, that can only happen in the now. Because if it's not now, that means it's a thought and a memory. So what that means is, let's say the next time, let's use the example from my domain, and then we'll port it over to your domain, Jared. The next time you're in a fight with your spouse, and I'm not talking about a knockdown, drag out fight, but just, you're having an argument with your spouse. What I want you to do is drop 30% of your attention down to your feet. You don't have to do the rocking because that'll look weird to the other person, but just kind of, bend your knees a little bit and just put 30% of your attention on your weight, and just feel that while you're with other. I guarantee you what it's going to do is it's going to ground your nervous system a little bit. It works every time for me, even as an experienced practitioner, works every time. So my partner is upset, I will just remember my feet. That's kind of what I tell myself, remember my feet. And I become more present, I become less reactive, I become more available to choose how I want to be. And of course, I'll 99 times out of 100, I'm going to choose to be more heartful and transparent and authentic. So having this technique allows me more space to live out of choice more often, rather than my reactivity, my scripting, my habituation, and my wounds. Am I making sense so far, Jared?
Oh, completely. Yeah. And I think this is what I want our parents to do when the kids are screaming.
Yeah.
And the kids are, trying to pull our hair out. And, we're so consumed in our thoughts how do we get out of our thoughts? We need to go somewhere else. So
Yeah.
we focus that sensation on our physical body.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for porting over, because that's exactly where I was headed, which is, the next time you're in front of your child and they're being rigid and not eating and having a meltdown because of a deviation from expectation, what I want you parents to do, or what I invite you to do, is put a little bend in your knee, put a little bend in your hip, rock back and forth, feel your weight as you look at your child, and reconnect to your love for the child. Hopefully that this technique allows you to do that. And then maybe you can operate out of choice more often, because we've all been there where they just frustrate the heck out of us. They push us over our limits, and we're doing our best. And hopefully this one little technique actually helps you in that regard. Here's the thing: it's not just a technique in the moment. This technique is infinitely more effective when you actually train with it. So what I work with guys is to have a daily practice of this exercise, as well as a bunch of others that I teach. So you need to train, and I encourage all parents, I encourage all humans to have a daily practice of embodiment exercises. And which includes meditation. That's one tool in the tool belt. So that when you get in the moment, your connection to your own body, your connection to the ground is it's much more internalized. So that when you try to use the technique in the moment, you can access that connection to the ground that much more quickly. So this is not a just in the moment technique. This is a training technique that then manifests in the moment as well.
Yeah, and it's I love I'll do that rocking with my daughter. So I've got, as my listeners know, I've got an 11-year-old, and
Mm-hmm.
she's screaming for an iPhone. And no, you're not getting. We've made our choice. You're not getting a phone till you get into high school.
Mm-hmm.
We think there's dangers to it. We don't want to go there. So when it's on her mind, I hate you. You're the worst dad in the world. Else has one.
Yeah.
I'm here in my house, and I'm rocking and I'm centering myself. I
Yeah.
know she loves me. I know she just wants this, and she's saying stuff to get that.
Yeah.
But I love the rocking. And the other thing that I practice a lot, and like you said, you have to practice every day. It's like going to the gym, but instead of going to the gym to make my arms go up and down,
Yeah.
I'm going to the gym to train that calm part of my nervous system.
Exactly.
What I've done from all the things you've taught me, I'll combine the box breathing with Kegels.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Love
will
that.
sitting, standing in the car, wherever.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a point that I was wanting to make, so thank you. There, you can embed this. You can do a daily practice. This is what I do. I get up every morning. I'm in my family room. I just do it. I get it done. But you can also embed it in your real life, in your car. I mean, everybody's in the car. Well, we used to all be in the car, so most of us are still in the car. Everybody's got time. You stand in the line at Whole Foods. You drive a car. You take a walk. Hundreds of other things that we do that we're sort of idle. So don't use time as an excuse to not have a practice like this. I think that's the advice I would give people. You can embed it in any time. So I tell all my guys, when you're at Whole Foods and everybody else is reading the magazines in the aisle, you're the one that's training, and you just sit there. And I'm doing it right now, and you can see me rocking back and forth. I'm doing it even when I'm on a podcast with you, man. You really can do it at any time.
I hope I'm not
Um,
stressing. That's
yeah, you are not my friend. Um, okay, so that's one technique that you can use, and let's mention the one that you just said. So box breathing. I think most people know this, but I'll just say box breathing is you're going to inhale for a 4 count. So inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. And that's what a box breath is. I drew the box with my finger there. And then you said with Kegels, so what that is, for anybody who might not know, is you're squeezing the perineum. And so you could do it, inhale, squeeze, 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 hold, squeeze, 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 or some other pattern. Really, you can kind of do whatever pattern you want. And then the good thing about Kegels or squeezing the perineum is that that's a sensation, and it can actually be a really intense sensation. And so you just generated another sensation in your body, just like the sense of weight is a sensation. So is a squeeze of the perineum. And so you put your attention on that squeeze and the physical sensations of that squeeze. And it's great because what it does is the box breath slows you down. It takes an autonomic process and turns it into one that's very chosen. And so that actually has the net effect of slowing you down. And then the squeezing of the perineum actually creates sensation. So you're feeling your body more. You're having more access to your body. So it's doing two things at once, and that's a really powerful one that I also would recommend to anybody in the audience.
Awesome.
Okay. Where do you want to take it for now? Do you want me to teach another exercise,
Well,
or
let's do this. First off, I wanted to kind of comment on the box breathing and something that you said. When you breathe and you hold and you breathe and you hold, that's training you to make a choice. And when we get stressed, it's all reaction. It's our defense mechanisms. It's going back to when we were a kid and all those habits we learned from our families and our parents. And so when we're in those stressful places, we just go to habits. We don't go to this is the best choice. And so when you've trained your nervous system to not automatically breathe, you're training yourself to choose. And that training to choose is great for all relationships because instead of, ooh, now I'm stressed, now my adrenaline's going, I can say, no, I'm going to make my choice of what I'm doing in this situation. And it brings so much more peace to your soul, which.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm glad you brought that up. You'll remember this, the way I'm always talking about it is you're strengthening the muscle of pausing and choosing, which is exactly what you just said. And oh my goodness, don't we all need that in life? And you know people like this. You see them, you experience them in life where they just feel very chosen from moment to moment. They're not all just sort of stumbling over themselves when they talk to people or the way they respond or move. And it feels really good because it's the mark of a settled nervous system. And then their settled nervous system actually transmits out to other people's nervous systems. It's really magical how that works. And so that training the muscles of pausing and choosing is very important. So the box breathing is a good one. We can even make it simpler. So you can just be breathe in through the nose. So breathe in and then pause. Pause, not yet. Okay, now. So exhale through the mouth. And again, you can be in the line at Whole Foods. You can be doing anything at this point. You can be in the shower. You can be making a sandwich. And then you can just choose to breathe intentionally rather than autonomically. And you emphasize the pauses and you make them very, very conscious, the pause and the reinitiation of the breath. And so you just breathe in through the nose. And then I choose now. And then out through the mouth. And that's a super simplified technique that can build that muscle of pausing and choosing. And then in my video course on embodiment, because I wrote a book on it, and then that was my second book. There's other exercises on intention and choice and pausing and choosing. So there's a number of exercises that you can bring to bear for this. This what I call straight breath is just the most simple one of them.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up your course and stuff because again, I've kind of eaten up everything that you've created and I really like it because I heard you originally on another podcast and I said, this is a guy that I resonate with and he's really speaking to what I'm feeling. And you're a great writer. I love your books. And I think that, again, your work is helping guys be stronger for relationships. Strength applies to everybody. That strength applies to men and women and everyone. So I think the best thing for our listeners and our viewers is that embodiment course of yours. So that you got the embodiment book, but the course is so much better because you're training. You are training people to do things to help them feel at peace. And that sensation of being at peace is so rare nowadays.
Yeah, it's so true. And peace is achievable for us, that inner peace. It really is achievable for us. You don't have to get the world to change. You change yourself. And I know that's conventional wisdom, and it's never more true than here. And it's never more true than with our children on the spectrum, because it's very hard to change them. There's some things we can do to mitigate it, but largely it's out of our hands. And so you have to change yourself, and it is possible. Parents, it's possible. I
Yeah.
guarantee it. Really do.
So let's do this. I want to kind of get any last thoughts from you about, hey, you're a father who has a child on the spectrum.
Hmm.
What technique do you feel is best that you use when interacting with him? And then we're going to get to our live questions for people who are listening live.
Techniques. Gosh, the one that I say, I feel like maybe everybody's figured this out by now because it's pretty basic. It's just getting ahead of things to set expectations. That was, the one that really always worked the best, is make sure that expectations are set early rather than late in the game. And that always helps. I actually enrolled him in the breathing. I tried to teach him at a young age, the breathing technique, just that straight breath of pausing and choosing. So I taught that to him, and that was actually pretty good. When I was able to enroll him in it in the moment, it actually would have a good effect. So, do this for yourself, but also teach your kids these techniques so that they can actually regulate their own nervous system. That would be one of the biggest things that I would pass on.
That's awesome. Yeah, for our high functioning kids, it's great, especially as they get into their preteen and teenage
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
They get stressed out. They have so much more anxiety than the typical child. They have
Yeah,
so much stress internally, and it's great for us and it's great
yeah,
for them.
yeah. I'm going to say one thing. This is just something that worked for me. I don't presume to be an expert, but one of the things that worked for our situation was I took my son to an osteopath who did osteopathic manual therapy on him. It's really effective for him. I don't know if that's universal for all kids, but
Right.
it's really effective at settling his system, because you were talking about the stress in their system, and the osteopathic manual therapy really kind of tends to loosen up the system. So
Right.
that's a tidbit for me. That's something that worked for me.
Yeah, there's so much
Hmm.
out there. So much. All right.
Yeah,
So let's get everybody your website and ways to contact you. Then we'll get to the live
yeah,
questions. So
sure.
what's the best place for
Uh,
people?
Website is gsyoungblood.com. And you can also get a taste of my work on YouTube as well as Instagram. So GS Youngblood, MIR. The name of the book, I have two books out. One is called The Masculine in Relationship. And this is for men who are wanting to inhabit more of their masculine groundedness, but in relationship with a partner and being more relational in that. And it's not about alpha dog nonsense. This is about being powerful, but more relational with your partner. The second one is called The Art of Embodiment for Men. I will say that you don't have to be a man to read it. It applies equally to women. It's just the frame that I speak to my audience through, which is men.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure if this sounds like something you guys are interested in, go to his website, gsyoungblood.com. And again, for the dads out there or for your husbands out there, I really like the masculinity book and the course, but I think everybody can benefit from that embodiment course because that is just hours and hours of training,
Hmm.
and videos that you
Yeah.
have. People train that part of you that brings calmness.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah. And one thing came up just hearing you talk. When you have a child on the spectrum, we all know this, it's stressful in the relationship. So men, my first book is teaching you relational skills. How do you get through the hard times that are amplified because you've got a child with special needs? And so the book is not per se about, the first book is not per se about your situation, but it is about your situation because you've probably got a lot of tension in the family system because of having a child with special needs. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's more stressful. The rates of divorce are much, much higher.
Hmm.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stress. So that's why we're here to help.
Yeah.
So let's get to the live questions. Some of these questions will be for you. Some of these questions will be for me because we're usually answering medical questions from our
Yeah.
families. Um, let's see, live. Live shout out to Joy and Jeannie. Jeannie's always on. Anita says, this is a great topic. I will share with my husband. And thank you, Anita. And I think all of the women on now, if your husband is stressed, okay, and who isn't, have him check out this stuff. Because again, I've worked with GS over the past six-ish months, let's say, if not a few more, and really, really helped me ground myself so I can help others. I can help with my wife. I can help with my daughter. I can help with you guys. So it's applicable for all. We've got our next question here. Getting there. Hold on. Usually we've got a lot of, here's one. Alyssa, again, thank you for always going the extra mile for our children and us parents. You're truly making a difference. You're welcome, Alyssa. As you know, that's why we're here. Live shout out to Nikki. Nikki watches a lot. Fano was on last week. Can you leave a link in the comments section? Of course we can. We'll make sure we get there. Janice says, definitely sending this to my son. Good, Janice. It's again, it's such a stressful world that we all need ways to learn how to calm ourselves down, and we're all so much in our heads all the time. In fact, GS, I was going to ask you, I read a book a couple weeks ago called The Untethered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about that book is it said, if you want to kind of get to who you are, that ultimate question of who am I? When you have thoughts and you have stressful thoughts, ask yourself, wait, who's thinking that? Am I those thoughts, or am
Mm-hmm.
I observing those thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I'm observing those thoughts, who is observing those thoughts of observing those thoughts? And it kind of goes those mirrors that never ends of
Mm-hmm.
who truly am I. And
Yeah.
it's a great way to ground.
Yeah. Yeah. That school of thought goes back to Ramana Maharshi and that core question, who am I? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, Jeannie. Jeannie's always on. Hey, Jeannie. This may be for both of you. Our problem is not our boy, but the public school system. His intervention specialists, therapists seem more concerned with money that my boy's diagnosis can bring them. How in the world do we deal with that to help him advance at his own pace? Well, I'll let you answer that question first, and then I got a comment.
Oh, I was going to leave that one to you.
All right. I would say this. You got to do what you probably don't want to do, which is lawyer up. So when you go into those meetings in the school systems, they are, I hate to say this, people want to help people, but organizations run on money. And so I've talked to how many families over the years where their child isn't getting the services they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so best thing to do with them is hire an advocate or lawyer up and go into, and you want to see some sphincters tighten in those meetings, bring a lawyer. All right, Diane, I've been dizzy for 2 weeks when I lie down, especially when I move my head. Is this stress or something serious? Diane, I would go see your cardiologist. I think that's a good place to go. Diane says also, thank you for the super serotonin. My son is back to falling asleep again. I know, I love that stuff. We just posted and pinned your website, GS, so we've got that going. Rodney's on. Hey, Rodney. Rodney watches every week. Janice, is it okay to take the Skowron solution and the yeast mold bundle at the same time? Yes, of course you can, Janice. All right, guys, that's all of our live questions right now. But I know, unfortunately, this Facebook Live was split in two because some technological glitches. So if you make comments in the first recording, I don't see them here. So if you want to ask any more questions, we got a few more minutes with GS. Couple more here. Keisha, how do we help those who are trying to help our kids? I know the aides can be stressed and pulled in so many directions. GS, what do you think about that? How can we help all those people in the schools, the paras, the aides, the therapists that are trying to help our kids?
Expressions of gratitude, make them feel, help them feel how much of a difference they're making. That tends to fuel people.
Yeah, no, that is, I love that. Yeah, again, hey, we're all doing our best. Sometimes we do well, sometimes we fail. We've all got a lot on our plate, and even those little words of gratitude go a long way. And even with you guys, I know you guys often put those in the comment section while we're doing our podcast recordings, and they feel great. I got to give a shout out. My grandpa. Oh no, sorry, that says Grandpa Ken. Hey, Grandpa Ken. I thought it was my father-in-law. Thought he was on. We got a question from Brianna. Brianna's got a medical question. Have you seen vitamin E help with speech? I have not. I know that's up there on the list, but I've never seen it specifically work. Dosing for a 5-year-old, I would go with 400 IU's a day. And you want to make sure you get, there's different forms of vitamin E. Alpha tocopherol is the cheap form, and so the most common one, but you want to make sure you get what's called a mixed tocopherol, which includes alpha, beta, and gamma tocopherol. Is just different forms of vitamin E to get really, really technical on that. But 400 IU's is a good dose. All right. If anybody else has any more live questions, and for those of you listening, obviously, those of you on live know that we record our podcasts every Thursday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We record live on Facebook, so you guys can be part of the action, ask live questions, and of course, we then post it out in the podcast world and YouTube. So we've got a few more minutes for other live questions for GS. GS, while we're waiting for more live questions, any other comments, techniques that you think our parents can benefit from?
Let's see. I'll reiterate what I said before. Try to enroll your child in this. Try to teach them breathing techniques. Even if it's just a straight breath of in through the nose, have them feel the sensation of air rushing across the nostrils, like feel the sensation. You want to bring them into their bodies more, because that's going to help regulate the body, which is what the problem is to begin with. It's a dysregulated nervous system. And then let them also strengthen their muscle of pausing and choosing. Like, how powerful would that be for the child if they could really even just, grow that muscle 20%, so to speak? I think that would be really powerful. And make it fun, like we're going to do this together. And that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Again, for those kids who, again, it's just like echolalia. It's just like repeating words and language. That's how kids learn. They watch and they repeat. They echo. And so if they see us doing that, then they're going to do it. And this is kind of the technique for any of you guys who are familiar with the Sunrise program, familiar with Ronald Kaufman. That's his whole technique. His whole technique is about mirroring. And that whole technique that he teaches to parents to help our kids is mirror what they're doing. If you do what they're doing, they're going to catch on to that, and they're going to start mirroring what you're doing. And just like our kids in the classrooms and in schools, everybody kind of goes toward the middle, and it's, the kids watch other kids and say, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's human nature. So if we're calm, they may be more calm as well. You're trying to pull them off their tablet, pull them off their iPad. We've got to go to therapy, or something unexpected happen. For those of you guys who do PEC schedules, say, hey, here's what we're going to do throughout the day. Then, if something's unexpected, they get triggered because they're so anxious inside. So if they see you be calm and be peaceful, they may imitate those techniques so that they're calmer and they're peaceful. And then, like GS said, try to do it with them. If your child's amenable to that, let's, try to do it with them. Or when they're in that moment of stress, have them feel like GS was teaching today. Have them feel their feet, have them ground, have them rock, have them touch things and feel physical sensations. So I don't see any more live questions popping up, GS. One more shout out. If anybody has any other live questions for GS or myself, please put them in the comment section. But GS, why don't we give people, again, a way to contact you and find all the great stuff that you offer?
Yeah, GSYoungblood.com is the best way. There's lots of contact forms where you can just email me at gs@gsyoungblood.com.
Sounds awesome. So short and sweet. But again,
yeah,
this is something that our world just doesn't do enough of. We're so busy, we're so stressed, we're so in our minds, and we're so rarely in our bodies anymore.
Yeah. And guys, doing this work is for our kids. This is what fuels me in my work with relationships is I want to save kids from having that conversation where mommy and daddy sit down and say, we're not going to be together anymore. Now you live in two households. When I did that, when I got divorced 14 years ago, it was the worst day of my life. And so we want to save our kids from that by doing the work ourselves.
Yeah. Hallelujah. So, well, GS, thank you for being on my podcast. We really appreciate it. And I know your work has helped me. And I don't say that often about stuff that I've reached out, but but how your work has helped me has really inspired me to want to connect you to our families and our listeners, because I know that it's going to help them.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jared.
Anytime. So thanks again, and thanks everybody for listening, and thank you for doing everything that you can for your kids, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.